Migration events are some of the most immersive experiences that you can have in the Isle and dinosaur survival games altogether. Granted, this isn't saying much for Legacy when the gameplay starts and ends with walking, eating and dying for the most part. Whether it's herbivores, carnivores or the dreaded mix pack, travelling together and keeping each other safe in the process is one of the most engaging experiences that you can have outside of general PvP. As some of you may already know, I organised my own challenging migration event not too long ago, deciding to travel from Great Falls to Twins as one of the Isle's biggest victims, the Ava. Of course, anybody who saw this video knows that it went terribly, and there was plenty of death to go round. But what if I told you that this time we are doing another smaller migration, but with something that won't be victimised so easily? Something a little more beefy. It was the night of the Pew migration, an idea I've had for a video for a very long time. Now some of you may already know about this big guy, but if not, I recommend checking out my profile video on it so you can learn all about them. But if you can't be bothered, in short, the Pew is the biggest dinosaur in the game and is borderline invincible to the rest of the dinosaurs on the roster, if not slightly handicapped on its own shortcomings. I managed to convince a few of my friends to take part in a short Pew migration from Hot Springs to Titan Lake. You may think that this is a pretty pathetic migration, but believe me when I say that the Pew is slow as shit, and by the time that we were halfway there, we were hoping for the distance to be an awful lot shorter. We had a total of 7 pews, which may not sound like much, but this is a considerable amount when on the average day you rarely see one. And I guess now's the time to say that pews aren't exactly free on this server. You see, on ASURA servers you have the option to buy adult dinos with points you earn playing instead of growing them. Each dinosaur varies in price based on how strong they are. Of course the Pew is the strongest of all, so its points price tag sits at a hefty 2.5 million points. Times that by 7 and you have an overall cost of 17.5 million points. But it actually ended up costing me 20 million because like an idiot I bought a Pew too soon for one of my friends and I had to rebuy. It took a decent amount of time to group up thanks to our sluggish travel speed, but eventually all the Titans had gathered and were ready to claim Titan Lake. The server was made aware of our location and we finally set off on our epic journey as the mightiest herd to ever take a stroll down the river. As you can imagine, our calls were overwhelming and it could be heard for miles, and we weren't shy about using them either. After the epicness wore off, we realised we only travelled a small fraction of the journey we set, and I myself was glad I didn't make the distance any longer than I did. In total it probably took about 10 to 15 minutes to reach the lake, but when you're playing a dinosaur like this it feels like an hour, and any other dinosaur would have covered this distance in about 2 minutes. Some of us split off to find bushes to eat as they wanted to take advantage of some mods they had installed to make the Pew actually able to reach food and water easily. However, I decided to keep with the vanilla experience as I didn't see myself living very long anyway, which led to this message on Discord which sounds quite dark out of context. You may notice that throughout the migration through the woods that we all stayed very close together. That is because the risk of getting caught in the trees permanently is very real, and nobody really wanted to become a prisoner of the woods. Eventually, after a little more walking and almost breaking ankles on small rocks, we made it to Titan Lake. We then spammed our broadcast calls a good amount of times to claim Titan Lake as our own, because is it really yours unless you've screamed about it for a good 10 minutes? As the sun finally rose to free us from our dark prison, it was now finally time for our cosplaying dreams to come true. We could all finally become the Loch Ness monster that we have dreamed of. We enjoyed the view of our new home as sea serpents until we slowly dropped below the surface and continued our journey as the true bottom feeders that we are. It was here that we caught sight of the hidden Titan skeleton in the lake's deepest point. The size of the bones dwarf even the Pew, and according to the Isle's lore, is potentially the last resting place of a gigantic hybrid creation. If any of you guys know more about the backstory of this, please feel free to share in the comments section for us all to learn from below. As we emerged on the other side of the lake, we noticed the handful of dinosaurs that were observing from afar had left for their own safety. I can only imagine their point of view being something similar to those who witnessed the rumbling in Attack on Titan. Because those who were previously watching us from afar kept their distance, we decided to re-enter the water to find a more open area of land near the lake to begin the final phase of this event. But that wasn't before turning around just in time to see one of my brethren become swallowed by the watery void. If you're wondering what the next phase involves, I had the idea of hosting a Pew battle with the winner receiving 5 million points. By the time that we had found a spot to start this fight, we had already gained an audience who were drawn here for the promise of a very big meal. The first idea was to do 1v1s, so it felt more like a competition, but Pew fights are a lot less exciting than you think, and when neither player wants to take any damage, it leaves a lot to be desired. So after waiting a good amount of time for somebody to at least get a light bruise, we decided to change it into a battle royale between all Pews, with the glory and the prize going to the last one standing. I did my best, but unfortunately I died rather early into the fight, and it was only until after my death that I realised how blinded by violence I really was, and how I should have actually watched more of the fight for the sake of you guys, so sorry about that. But I wanted to at least show you the aftermath, so I hopped on the Hera and raced over there before time ran out. By the time I had gotten there, the winner was still standing tall awaiting for the now bigger group of dinosaurs to finish them off. There was still going to be a bit of time before the victor, MGK, was going to fall to these mortals, so I took the chance to absorb the chaos and tried to get some more footage of the battlefield. But of course, once you let your guard down in the Isle, that's where it all goes wrong, and I was assassinated before I could enjoy the finale of this event. So this marked the end of what was the most costly event to organise so far within these servers, despite how brief it actually was. I imagine you think I must be quite wealthy to afford all these overgrown bush munchers, but this is actually not true. The person you need to thank for this video even being possible is a fellow Isle player called Dinoline. She was responsible for the prize money in the Ava migration, and she was also responsible for covering the costs of the pews and the prize money for this event too, so be sure to thank them in your prayers for their generosity, as without them, I wouldn't have been able to afford even one pew. I'm also throwing up all the names of the participants of this event as a thank you for suffering with me. I always appreciate your support when organising these ideas. I hope you enjoyed this video, as it was really fun to make, and I did my best to make it longer than the previous videos, because I know that's what you guys have been asking for. I did however give myself a challenge choosing this video to start with, when pews live a life in a perpetual state of slow motion. Oh, and by the way, If any of you viewers were actually present at this event in any form when it happened, let me know. I'd love to hear who you were during all of this and what you thought about it. And if you weren't but wish you could, be sure to check out the ASURA servers in general, as you may never know when you might see me next. As for what to expect on the horizon from me, you'll be happy to hear I'm working on the next dino profile video. So until that's ready, I'll see you around.